The courtroom froze mid-sentence. A woman leaned back smirking, her voice cutting through the air. "You are not as smart as you think, Judge." Gasps rippled across the gallery, but Judy did not flinch. She simply closed the file, her silence sharper than any insult. Seconds later, the smirk on that woman's face began to tremble. Because what Judge Judy said next, no one in that courtroom will ever forget. The courtroom wasn't quiet. It was holding its breath. Melissa Crane sat at the defendant's table, legs crossed, a glossy confidence coating every move she made. Her grin was the kind that dares the world to challenge it. A grin built on getting away with things. Across from her, Dana Cole, the plaintiff, sat with her back straight but her shoulders trembling slightly. She wore the look of someone trying to stay composed in a place that still felt unsafe. The file in her hands was already wrinkled, the paper edges bent where her thumbs had pressed too tight. Then the door at the back opened. Judge Judy entered without a word. No flourish, no greeting, just that sharp silence that always arrived with her, the kind that made people straighten up even if they hadn't done anything wrong. The sound of her heels clicked once, twice. The room shifted. Melissa's eyes followed her like a predator tracking movement, her smirk widening as the cameras adjusted. "So this is the famous Judge Judy," she whispered to no one in particular, just loud enough for the microphones to catch it. "Let's see if she lives up to the reputation." The bailiff cleared his throat, trying to mask the discomfort rippling through the gallery. Judy took her seat and scanned the room, not dramatically but efficiently, like someone weighing truths before they were spoken. "Ms. Cole, Ms. Crane," she said, tone flat, deliberate. "You're both here over an online defamation claim. Let's hear it." Melissa chuckled under her breath. "Defamation," she echoed, eyes rolling. "That's a strong word for a joke." Dana flinched. The word joke stung more than it should have. "Go on," Judy said. Melissa shrugged like she was recounting a funny story at dinner. "She posted this emotional video online about how hard teaching is," I commented. "Maybe I said something a little sharp, but it was just humor." "People need to lighten up," the audience murmured, a ripple of disapproval spreading. Dana's voice, small but steady, broke through the tension. "Your comment cost me my job. Parents saw it. The school board called me unfit." For a heartbeat, nobody spoke. Judy's gaze cut toward Melissa. The smirk didn't vanish, it wavered. "You think that's funny?" Judy asked quietly. Melissa leaned forward, smile turning smug again. "I think people are overreacting, including you." A few gasps scattered across the courtroom. Even the bailiff blinked hard, as if confirming what he'd just heard. Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply closed the file in front of her, one hand steady, her eyes locked on Melissa's. "Tell me again," she said, her tone surgical, each word landing with the precision of a gavel. "In front of everyone, what makes you so sure you are right?" Melissa tilted her head, grin thinning under the weight of that question. For the first time, silence didn't serve her. The echo of Judge Judy's question still hung in the air when Melissa shifted in her chair, forcing a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. The kind of laugh people use when silence feels dangerous. "All right," she said, voice sweet but sharp. "If we're going to drag this out, I'll tell you everything. Maybe then everyone can stop pretending I'm some kind of monster." The courtroom stayed still. Cameras blinked red. Even the bailiff had stopped breathing for a moment. Melissa gestured toward Dana, her movements exaggerated, like she was performing. She posted a video crying online, saying her students didn't respect her, that she was overwhelmed. I made a comment. That's it. One comment. Her tone was casual, rehearsed. But Judy's eyes didn't move from her face. "Read it," Judy said quietly. Melissa blinked. "Excuse me?" "Read the comment aloud. Word for word." The clerk slid a printed screenshot across the desk. Melissa hesitated before picking it up. Her voice faltered as she began. "Maybe if she could teach as well as she cries, those kids wouldn't be failing." A murmur rolled through the gallery. "And the picture?" Judy asked. Melissa shrugged. "It was public. Anyone could have posted it." The plaintiff's fingers clenched the edge of her folder. Dana's voice cracked as she finally spoke. "That picture was taken from my class livestream. You cropped out the students. You turned my face into a meme." The words landed like stones in still water, soft at first, then spreading outward until everyone in the room could feel the shame beneath them. Judy leaned back. "And what happened after you posted it?" Melissa crossed her arms. People laughed. They shared it. It went viral. But that's not my fault, and she put herself out there. Dana exhaled shakily, her composure trembling. I received hundreds of messages. Parents demanded I be fired. My principal suspended me while they investigated. She swallowed. I had taught there for 12 years. A low gasp came from the back row. The tension in the air thickened like humidity before a storm. Melissa's eyes flicked toward the cameras again, searching for sympathy. Look, it was a joke that got out of hand. The internet's crazy, not me. Judy's tone remained calm, but her eyes burned cold. You think cruelty becomes comedy when strangers join in? Melissa rolled her eyes. With respect, Judge, you're old school. You don't understand how the internet works. The sound that followed wasn't laughter. It was disbelief. Even the bailiff's hand froze mid-motion near his belt. Judge Judy didn't blink. She simply adjusted her glasses, studying Melissa like she was a puzzle already solved. Maybe, Judy said softly, but I do understand how consequences work. The smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. Judy gestured to the clerk. Bring me the folder. The blue file slid across the bench, thick with printed screenshots and timestamps. The room stilled as Judy opened it. Let's see, she said. What else your joke had to say? The air seemed to tighten, every heartbeat in sync with the turning of that first page. The first page flipped with a soft rustle that somehow sounded louder than a shout. The courtroom leaned forward, the way people do when they sense something is about to crack. Judge Judy scanned the paper, eyes moving with surgical precision. Every line she read stripped away a layer of pretense. Then, without looking up, she asked, Ms. Crane, did you write this comment as well? Melissa tilted her chin up. Probably. What does it say? Judy's tone stayed calm, but her words sliced. It says, imagine being taught by someone this pathetic. No wonder her kids fail. The teacher needs lessons in life. The room stirred like a body hit with a cold wind. Dana closed her eyes. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened. Melissa shrugged, feigning indifference. Okay, that one's a little mean. But again, it's humor. People exaggerate online. Judy finally looked up. Did you exaggerate when you added hashtags like "Yam fire her" and "waste of tax money"? Melissa's mouth opened, but no words came out. The confidence that once coated her every word now felt brittle, cracking under the weight of evidence. The judge continued, voice steady, controlled. So you were not joking, Ms. Crane. You were recruiting. Melissa blinked. Recruiting? An audience, Judy replied. You gathered strangers to humiliate one person. For sport. The words landed heavy. Dana's eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. She only whispered, She called me weak. Judy turned toward her. And yet you are still here. That silence afterward was different, not heavy, but sacred. Even Melissa couldn't meet Dana's eyes. Then Judy shifted gears with frightening calm. Tell me, Ms. Crane, what did you gain from this? Melissa's smirk returned, smaller now, fragile. Attention, I guess. People follow honesty. Honesty, Judy repeated, the word tasting bitter. You confuse cruelty with honesty and applause with validation. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Melissa tried to speak again, but her voice trembled for the first time. It was just online. I didn't think... Judy interrupted, not harshly but with finality. No, you did not think. That is the problem. The pause that followed wasn't empty. It was a reckoning. A single camera clicked, capturing the image. Melissa shrinking behind her own arrogance, Judge Judy unmoved, Dana silent but unbroken. Then Judy leaned forward, resting both elbows on the desk. Tell me, Ms. Crane, if this was all so harmless, why did you delete the original post? The smirk vanished. Melissa froze. Her eyes darted toward the folder, then to the clerk, then back to Judy. Because people took it out of context. Judy closed the file slowly. Or because context exposed the truth. Melissa looked down. Her jaw worked, but no words followed. For the first time since the hearing began, she looked small. Judy tapped the folder once, sealing the moment like a verdict. Then you will not mind, she said quietly. If we look at what you deleted, the gavel struck once, and the whole courtroom seemed to stop breathing. The gavel's echo hadn't even faded when the clerk moved. Slow, deliberate steps that made the entire courtroom lean forward. The blue folder in his hands looked heavier than paper should ever feel. It landed on the bench with a soft thud, but the sound carried like thunder. Judge Judy rested a palm on it, eyes never leaving Melissa Crane. The defendant's confidence drained in silence. Even her breathing betrayed her now. Shallow, uneven, a rhythm of regret trying to disguise itself as composure. "Ms. Crane," Judy began, her tone calm but glacial. "You say this was a joke? That you deleted it because people overreacted?" A beat. "Let us see what people reacted to." The judge flipped the folder open. Printed screenshots stared back like ghosts that refused to die. Every page bore the same signature. Melissa's username glowing above lines of mockery, tagged photos and laughing emojis that felt like bullets. Melissa's voice broke the quiet. "Those were old comments. I deleted them months ago." Judy didn't look up. "Deleting them doesn't erase what they did." She turned one more page. The next post was worse. A meme of Dana crying at her desk captioned, "Maybe she's grading her own performance." Laughter emojis trailed below. Hundreds of them, each one another digital stone. The gallery stirred. Someone whispered, "That's cruel," under their breath. Dana looked away. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Not here. Not now. Judy slid the paper closer to Melissa. "You called her weak. Yet you needed strangers to make you feel strong." Melissa's lips parted. "It wasn't. I didn't mean..." But Judy didn't let her finish. "Meaning doesn't change impact, Ms. Crane." A single flash went off from one of the press cameras in the back. The light illuminated Melissa's face. For a heartbeat, arrogance and fear shared the same expression. Then Judy spoke again, quieter now, her tone almost reflective. "You wanted attention. You got it." She gestured toward the rows of faces, the cameras, the hum of judgment filling the air. "Was it worth it?" Melissa's voice shrank to a whisper. "I didn't think it would go this far." Judy closed the folder, the sound final, like the slamming of a door that wouldn't reopen. Then she looked to the clerk. "Who submitted this?" The clerk hesitated. "It was provided by a witness, Your Honor." "Name?" Judy asked. He flipped a note card. "Amber Price." The name hit Melissa like a slap. Her head snapped up. "Amber?" "That's my friend." The courtroom shifted. Dana looked confused. Judy looked intrigued. "Your friend," the judge repeated. "She thought the court should see this?" Melissa's throat tightened. She wasn't supposed to..." Judy leaned forward, her tone as precise as the scalpel of truth itself. Then maybe she finally decided to stop being silent. For the first time, Melissa didn't have a comeback. Her silence filled the room more completely than her laughter ever had. The judge tapped the folder once more, a sound that felt like judgment itself. "Tell me, Ms. Crane," she said, eyes narrowing, "would you like to explain why your friend thought this needed to be seen?" Melissa blinked, one tear, one tremor. Then nothing. The lights above seemed to flicker as if even they were waiting for her answer. For a moment, Melissa did not speak. Her eyes darted from the folder to the judge, then to the audience, searching for a single sympathetic face. None looked back. The weight of the silence pressed harder than any accusation could. "She had no right," Melissa whispered finally, her voice trembling. "Amber betrayed me." Judge Judy's tone stayed level. "She exposed the truth. That is not betrayal. That is conscience." Melissa shook her head, clinging to the last fragments of defiance. "People love to turn on you." She just wanted attention. "She's jealous." "Everyone is." Judy studied her for a moment. That quiet, assessing stare that could strip ego bare. "Jealousy, Ms. Crane, implies you have something worth envying. From where I sit, all I see is avoidance." The words landed like stones. The courtroom barely moved, the tension so tight it felt like glass waiting to shatter. Melissa tried to laugh, but the sound cracked mid-breath. "Avoidance?" "I'm here, aren't I?" "Yes," Judy said, "but you are still pretending." The defendant blinked. "Pretending?" "Pretending that this isn't your fault. Pretending that cruelty is comedy. Pretending you are untouchable." Melissa's smile faltered completely now. The facade began to crumble piece by piece under the steady weight of Judy's composure. Across the room, Dinah lowered her eyes. Her fingers traced the edge of her folder, the only barrier between her and the memory of humiliation. Judy turned to her. "Ms. Cole, did you ever receive an apology?" Dana shook her head slowly. "No, Your Honor. I received messages from strangers and threats, jokes, fake reviews on my teaching profile. but never an apology. The judge returned her gaze to Melissa. "And why is that?" Melissa hesitated, her tongue pressing against the inside of her cheek as if searching for a clever answer. "Because nothing I say would have mattered. People don't forgive online." "That's convenient," Judy replied. "Silence is self-protection." The courtroom murmured in agreement. The truth of it stung. Melissa exhaled sharply. "I'm not the villain here." She made herself a target by crying online. She put herself out there. Judy's voice grew softer, which somehow made it sharper. "And you decided the world should punish her for that." "No!" Melissa's voice rose too quickly. I just said what everyone else was thinking." "That," Judy said, leaning forward, "is how cruelty always starts." Melissa looked away, blinking fast, her jaw trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. The judge waited, giving her space to say something real, but nothing came. Instead, Melissa muttered, "You don't get it. You're old. You live in a world where words still matter." Judy didn't react. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then slowly she said, "And maybe that is exactly why I'm still standing, and you are falling apart." Melissa's shoulders slumped. Her chin lowered. Judy folded her hands. "Tell me, Ms. Crane," she said softly, "have you ever been wrong before?" Melissa didn't answer. But her reflection in the polished table, wide-eyed, uncertain, already had. The gavel did not strike this time. It didn't need to. The silence itself became the order of the court. Melissa Crane sat stiff in her chair, jaw locked, eyes glassy with anger that had started to feel suspiciously like shame. The room seemed smaller now, the air thicker. Even the cameras, always eager for conflict, panned slower, as if afraid to interrupt what was happening. Judge Judy's voice broke the stillness, low but steady. "Let's hear from Ms. Cole again." Dana hesitated, her fingers gripping the folder that held the story of her humiliation. "Do I have to read it all?" she asked softly. Judy shook her head. "No, just tell us what it cost you." Dana exhaled slowly, then began. "After the post went viral, I stopped sleeping. I stopped teaching. I couldn't even go to the grocery store without someone whispering. Parents pulled their children from my class. One mother told me she didn't want her son learning from the crying teacher." Her voice trembled, but she didn't cry. She had learned how to hold pain like a shield. Melissa fidgeted in her seat. Her bravado had vanished, replaced by a restless kind of guilt that kept rising and falling with every breath Dana took. Judy's gaze stayed on Dana, her tone quieter now. "Why are you here today?" Dana looked up, her eyes shining under the fluorescent lights. "Because I want her to understand that her joke had a face. A life, a family," she swallowed. "I don't want revenge. I just want her to know she wasn't funny." The words landed like a verdict. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Melissa let out a brittle laugh. One of those sounds people make when they're falling apart but pretending not to. "You think I planned all that? Come on. People online exaggerate everything. I didn't." The gavel struck once, a clean echoing sound that froze her mid-sentence. "Enough," Judy said, her tone still calm, but the authority in it made every heartbeat in the room stutter. "You have spoken enough, Ms. Crane. Now you will listen." Melissa's lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes lowered to the table. Judy turned slightly, addressing her with deliberate care. "You called her weak." Melissa nodded faintly, her voice barely audible. "Yeah." Judy leaned forward, her eyes sharp but not cruel. "And yet I have only seen strength. She faced the storm you created, and she is still standing." Melissa blinked. The words hit deeper than any accusation had. Her hands tightened together, a small tremor running through them. Judy continued, quieter now. "Do you know what real weakness looks like? It looks like mockery hiding behind a smile. It looks like fear dressed up as confidence." A hush spread through the courtroom, that rare kind of silence that feels sacred, not empty. Melissa looked up at Dana for the first time. No glare, no smirk, just confusion, maybe recognition. A mirror she didn't expect to see. Judy closed her file. "Ms. Crane, if you still think this is about a joke," she said, voice soft as glass, "you haven't looked closely enough at the damage." The defendant said nothing, but the reflection staring back from the table's polished surface, trembling, tear-lined, human, said everything. The echo of Judge Judy's final words still trembled in the air when the silence cracked, not with sound, but with tension. Melissa Crane sat frozen, her reflection in the polished table showing the truth before her lips could form it. For the first time since the trial began, she wasn't performing. She was unraveling. Her arms folded across her chest, a poor attempt at armor. "So what now?" she muttered, voice sharp but shaking. "You want me to cry too? Will that make you all happy?" Judy didn't flinch. "No," she said simply. "I want you to understand." Melissa's laugh came brittle and too loud. "Understand what?" "That feelings matter more than facts. That people can't take a joke anymore?" Judy tilted her head, studying her like a teacher examining a stubborn student. "No," she said softly. "That cruelty is not intelligence. And that truth, when spoken without empathy, becomes violence." The line lingered in the air. Even the bailiff's stance softened. Then Judy gestured to the clerk. "Bring up the next exhibit." The clerk carried over a timeline, a series of printed posts, each time-stamped, each escalating. At first, jokes, then mockery, then pure unfiltered malice. It told a story far clearer than any testimony could. Judy began reading, her voice steady. March 3rd, Crew's crybaby teacher strikes again. March 4th, still waiting for her to quit. March 6th, if she's this emotional, imagine her students. Each word struck like a gavel. Melissa's smirk disappeared for good. "I didn't realize how many people copied it," she whispered. "That's the thing about the mob," Judy said, eyes narrowing. "It doesn't need permission once it needs a spark." "And you lit it?" Dana sat silently, her eyes fixed on the floor. Every word from Judy felt like the sound of something being restored. Balance, dignity, a sliver of peace. Melissa's fingers tapped nervously on the table, breaking rhythm with every uneven breath. "So I'm the villain now," she said quietly, "and everyone else is innocent?" Judy leaned forward. "No, Ms. Crane, but you started the fire." "You can't be shocked by the smoke," the audience murmured again. Even those who had come for entertainment now looked uneasy, like they were witnessing something far more human than television justice. Melissa opened her mouth to respond, but hesitated. Her voice failed her. Instead, she looked at Dana, the first real look all day, and for a brief, fragile moment her expression softened. Judy noticed. "Good," she said gently. "Look at her." Not the cameras. Not the audience, her, Melissa did, and in that simple act something shifted. Power no longer sat at her table. It was across the room, in the quiet composure of the woman she'd tried to destroy. Judy folded her hands again. "Do you want to see," she asked, her voice lowering to almost a whisper, "what your words did to her students?" Melissa's head snapped up. "My... what?" Judy nodded toward the side door. "Yes, because this isn't just her story anymore." The door creaked open. A figure stepped forward holding a stack of letters. Melissa's pulse quickened. "What is that?" she asked. Judy's tone was calm, deliberate. "That," she said, "is truth speaking back." The courtroom door creaked open, and the sound alone was enough to pull every eye toward it. A young woman stepped in, early 20s, nervous but determined, carrying a stack of neatly folded letters. She looked like she'd rehearsed this moment 100 times, yet still felt unprepared for it. Judy nodded toward her. "State your name for the record." The woman cleared her throat. "My name is Emily Rivera. I was one of Miss Cole's students." Melissa blinked, her posture straightening. "What is this?" she demanded, voice high with tension. Judy's response was gentle but firm. "Perspective." Emily took a deep breath and held up the letters. "These were written by her students, by our class. We wanted to explain what your post did, Miss Crane." Melissa's eyes flicked to the bailiff, then to the cameras as though searching for an escape. None came. "Go on," Judy said softly. Emily unfolded the first letter, hands trembling slightly. "When that post went viral, other kids at school started sending it around. Some teachers laughed. Some didn't know what to say. But the students, we saw how it broke her." Dana covered her mouth. Her eyes welled, but she didn't interrupt. Emily's voice steadied. She stopped smiling. She stopped reading to us. She used to start every class with a joke. She said it made learning easier. After your post, she stopped talking at all. A sound caught in the back of Melissa's throat. Not quite a gasp, but close. Judy leaned forward, watching her. "You called her weak," she said quietly. "But strength doesn't always look loud." Emily placed the letters on the desk. "Some of us wrote her after she left." We didn't know where she was, so we mailed them to the school. They came back unopened. Dana's hand trembled as she reached for them. I never got these, she whispered. Melissa shifted, panic flashing across her face. I didn't know, I didn't think. That's the problem, Judy interrupted. You didn't think. You posted. You mocked, and then you moved on. But they, she gestured to Emily, to Dana, to the silent crowd, didn't get to move on. For the first time, Melissa's voice broke. I didn't mean to ruin her life. It was just online. Judy's tone hardened, not with anger, but precision. Words are never just online. They are echoes that live longer than memory. You threw a stone into the water, Miss Crane, and now you are hearing the ripples. The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the cameras hesitated, afraid to intrude on the rawness of what lingered between those three women. The teacher, the student, and the woman who had tried to destroy them both. Judy finally spoke, voice low and deliberate. Ms. Crane, she said, you profited from this, didn't you? Melissa blinked. What? Judy's eyes locked on her. You gained followers, sponsorship offers, advertising clicks. You turned someone's pain into content. Melissa's face drained of color. I didn't mean for... But the judge cut her off with a single devastating question. Tell me, she said, her tone sharp as glass, how much did humiliation pay? The courtroom went silent. Dana's eyes widened. Even the bailiff looked shaken, and Melissa... She didn't speak. She couldn't, because for the first time the truth had spoken back, and it wasn't done yet. Melissa Crane's mouth opened, but no words came out. The question hung there. How much did humiliation pay? Echoing through the courtroom like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost its gloss. It was marketing, she said weakly. Everyone does it. People post reactions, people comment, people... Judy raised a hand, silencing her. Marketing, she repeated slowly, letting the word turn sour in the air. So destroying a woman's name was part of your brand. Melissa's eyes darted around, to the cameras, the audience, anywhere but the judge's face. The calm she'd worn all morning was gone, stripped bare by her own admission. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she said. It was supposed to be funny. It's just how online engagement works. Dana's voice cut softly through the stillness. You mean bullying? The courtroom stirred again. Melissa's cheeks flushed red. You don't get it, she snapped, her voice rising, the old arrogance clawing its way back in desperation. This is what the internet rewards. You go viral or you disappear. Nobody cares about good people. They care about loud ones. Her words filled the room, trembling with conviction and shame all at once. For the first time, her confidence sounded like confession. Judge Judy watched her carefully, expression unreadable. Then she leaned forward. And tell me, Miss Crane, did it feel good? The fame, the clicks, the applause from strangers? Melissa hesitated, then whispered, At first, Judy echoed. And afterward, Melissa's voice cracked. Afterward, I couldn't breathe. Every time I opened my phone, people were messaging me, calling me brave, calling me real. I started believing it. But then... Her sentence trailed off. She didn't finish. Then what? Judy asked. Melissa swallowed hard. Then the hate turned on me. New people. New comments? They said worse things about me than I ever said about her. The irony hung thick in the room. Dana lowered her gaze, torn between pity and disbelief. Judy's face softened just slightly. That's how it works, Judy said. The mob doesn't love you. It only loves the noise. Melissa blinked back tears. You don't know what it's like. You're old school. You don't have to survive online. Judy's response was quiet, deliberate. You're right. I don't live online. I live in the real world, where actions have consequences and where decency isn't optional. Melissa slumped back in her chair. I didn't think this would destroy my career, she muttered. Judy folded her hands. It didn't destroy your career, Miss Crane. It revealed your character. The words landed like a hammer. The gallery was silent. No murmurs, no shifting, just stillness. Melissa's breathing grew uneven. Her image, the influencer, the online wit, the fearless truth-teller, began to crumble right there under the courtroom lights. Judy closed the folder one last time. You are about to learn, she said softly, what accountability sounds like. The gavel didn't strike. It didn't have to. Her voice carried the weight of judgment all by itself. Do you think remorse should ever erase guilt, or does justice demand consequences no matter how sorry someone becomes? The gavel struck once, not for order but for stillness. Its echo rolled through the room, deep and final, silencing even the low hum of the cameras. Enough noise, Judge Judy said. It's time to hear the one voice that was never given a chance to speak. Melissa looked up, startled. Her voice came out sharp. What else is there to hear? I already said I was sorry, but Judy ignored her, turning instead to Dana Cole, the quiet teacher whose life had been twisted into a meme. Ms. Cole, Judy said softly, the floor is yours. For a long second, Dana didn't move. She looked fragile, smaller somehow beneath the fluorescent lights. Then she stood, her chair scraping against the floor like the start of a storm. Her voice was steady, but each word carried the weight of sleepless nights and unspoken humiliation. When you spend your life teaching children kindness, it's hard to understand how cruelty becomes entertainment. The courtroom leaned forward. Even the air seemed to hush. Dana continued, her tone trembling but fierce. My students used to laugh with me. After that post, they laughed at me. The teacher's lounge went quiet when I walked in. Parents stopped answering my calls. I thought about quitting every day. Her eyes flicked to Melissa, not with hatred but with exhaustion. You made me into a joke to people who never met me. Melissa's gaze dropped to her lap. Her hands, once folded in confidence, now fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve. I didn't mean, she began, but Judy's gavel tapped lightly once. Do not speak, Judy said. Listen, Dana drew in a breath. I came here today because I wanted to see if you'd look at me and still think it was funny. She paused, voice catching. Because I wanted to see if there was anything left of you that could feel. For a heartbeat, even the cameras stopped whirring. The entire courtroom, hundreds of eyes, one moment, felt the truth of her words land like thunder wrapped in quiet. Melissa's lower lip trembled. She blinked rapidly, tears threatening but refusing to fall. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't. Judy leaned forward, her tone sharp but not unkind. You didn't care to know. The words cut clean through the silence. Then Judy turned to the gallery. Let the record show, she said calmly, that when truth speaks, arrogance must fall silent. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. Someone in the back clapped once, quickly silenced by the bailiff's stern look. But the message had landed. Dana sat back down, trembling but lighter, as if she had finally set something heavy down. Judy looked at her for a moment longer, then at Melissa. There is one message, she said, sliding a final sheet from the folder. We haven't read yet. Melissa frowned, voice fragile. What message? Judy lifted the page slowly, her eyes steady. A message you wrote, but never sent. Melissa's breath caught. What are you talking about? Judy looked directly at her. Your draft apology. A ripple of confusion moved through the courtroom. Melissa's face drained of color. How do you... But Judy was already unfolding the paper. Because the internet forgets nothing, she said softly. The gallery leaned in. The room was a held breath waiting to exhale. The page in Judge Judy's hand fluttered slightly in the courtroom's air conditioning, the paper trembling like a confession waiting to breathe. Melissa Crane's eyes locked onto it, her face pale beneath the harsh white lights. What is that? She asked, voice breaking around the edges. Judy didn't answer right away. She studied the paper for a moment as if weighing its truth, then began to read. Her tone was calm, not judgmental, not performative, just true. Dana, I went too far. I thought being bold made me brave, but it only made me cruel. I told myself it was just content, but the truth is I was jealous of your kindness. You have what I lost, and I didn't know how to face that. The courtroom stilled. The words felt alive, fragile, human. Melissa's lips parted. I never sent that, she whispered. Judy nodded. No, you didn't, but you wrote it. And that means somewhere in you there was recognition, however brief, that what you did was wrong. Melissa swallowed hard. Where did you get it? Judy lifted her gaze. From the same witness who brought the folder. Amber Price. The name hit like déjà vu. Melissa's hands clenched. She stole it. That was private. Judy leaned forward slightly. No, Miss Crane, that was honest. You just hid it before anyone could see. The tension broke into murmurs. The audience wasn't sure whether to feel anger or pity. Even the bailiff looked unsettled. as if the line between justice and mercy had blurred right before his eyes. Judy continued reading, her voice lower now, carrying something almost like empathy. When I was 19, I posted a video and people mocked me. They made me the punchline for months. I told myself I'd never be that weak again. I built a shell, louder, meaner, harder. It worked. Until now, Melissa covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. I never meant for anyone to see that, she said through broken breaths. Judy set the letter down carefully. And that's what makes it important. It's the first thing you've said that wasn't meant to impress anyone. Melissa wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup across her fingers. I was humiliated once. I swore I'd never feel that small again. So I made other people smaller instead. Judy nodded slowly. And now? Melissa hesitated, her voice small, fragile. Now I see I just became what I hated. The gallery fell utterly silent. Even the soft whir of the cameras paused, as though the moment deserved stillness. Judy's tone softened, still firm, but carrying the weight of understanding. That's the first honest thing you've said since you sat down. Melissa looked up, tears streaking down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. Judy didn't smile, but something behind her eyes shifted, a flicker of compassion hidden beneath years of practiced restraint. Don't tell me, she said. Tell her. Melissa turned toward Dana. Their eyes met, two women on opposite sides of the same wound. I'm sorry, she said again, this time with no cameras in her voice. The room didn't clap. It didn't move. But something deep, wordless, human cracked open between them. Judy leaned back, folding the unsent letter neatly. So you became what you once hated, she said quietly. What do you think that makes you now? Melissa had no answer, just tears glinting under the lights that once adored her. For a long moment no one spoke. The courtroom was a cathedral of silence, every emotion contained, every breath restrained. Melissa Crane sat hunched forward, hands clasped, mascara smudged in dark trails down her face. The arrogance that once defined her had drained completely, leaving something raw, almost unrecognizable, a person finally seeing herself clearly. Judge Judy broke the quiet with a tone that was neither cruel nor kind, simply steady. Miss Crane, she said, an apology is not the end of accountability. It is the beginning of it. Melissa nodded faintly, her eyes unfocused. I know, Judy continued. This court finds that your actions caused measurable harm, emotional distress, reputational damage, and material loss. She turned slightly toward Dana Cole, whose posture was still tense, though her expression carried something gentler than before, exhaustion wrapped in release. The judge's next words were deliberate, echoing like the calm before a verdict. You are ordered to make a public apology, not a post for sympathy, not a video for clicks, but a statement of truth. You will also pay restitution for the damages you caused, to the extent this court deems fair. Finally, she paused, you will complete 100 hours of community service at a cyber ethics program. The gallery stirred, murmuring approval. Dana exhaled quietly, not triumphant but relieved. Melissa looked up. And if I refuse? She asked, voice small, almost childlike. Judy's gaze didn't waver. Then your sponsors, your audience, and the rest of this court will know exactly what your apology was worth. Nothing. The words didn't strike like punishment. They landed like truth. Melissa nodded slowly. I'll do it, she said. All of it. Good, Judy replied, because your followers don't need another influencer. They need a reminder that humanity still matters. Dana glanced up at that, eyes softening. She hadn't expected compassion to survive in this room, but there it was, a fragile, flickering, alive. The clerk began typing the ruling. Papers rustled, chairs creaked, and the sound of reality setting in replaced the sharp tension of earlier hours. Melissa stared down at her reflection in the polished wood, the faint shimmer of light tracing across her tear-streaked cheeks. Will anyone believe I've changed? She asked quietly. Judy studied her for a long moment. Then, with rare gentleness, she replied, only if you stop performing. That landed deeper than any sentence could. Melissa nodded again, this time with something closer to sincerity. As the courtroom began to empty, the bailiff approached to escort her out. But before she stood, Dana turned in her seat. Their eyes met once more, not as enemies, but as two people who had finally stopped pretending. Dana's lips parted just enough to whisper, I hope you mean it. Melissa didn't answer, but her nod carried the weight of a truth that didn't need words. Judge Judy closed her file, gaze fixed on the space between them. This, she said softly, is what consequence looks like, not revenge, not spectacle. Just balance being restored. The lights above flickered slightly, casting both women in the same pale glow. For the first time, neither of them looked smaller than the other. The courtroom emptied slowly, as if everyone sensed that leaving too quickly would break something sacred. The energy had changed, not triumphant, not tragic, but quietly resolved. The chatter that usually follows a verdict was replaced by soft footsteps and hushed breaths. Judge Judy remained seated long after the cameras dimmed. Her robe, once a symbol of distance, felt heavier now, not from authority, but from the weight of what she had witnessed. She set her glasses down and rubbed her temples. It wasn't exhaustion from work. It was the fatigue that comes only after staring at the anatomy of cruelty too closely. Across the room, the bailiff gathered papers. "Long day, Judge," he murmured. Judy nodded. "They all are. But some stay longer than others." He hesitated. "You think she'll change?" The judge's eyes lingered on the empty defendant's chair. "Change?" she repeated softly. "Maybe. But redemption's not the same as transformation. One comes from apology. The other comes from work." The bailiff nodded, understanding enough to leave it there. He exited quietly, leaving Judy alone with the faint hum of the lights overhead. For a while she didn't move. She simply listened, to the silence, to the echo of a gavel that didn't need to strike again. Then she stood, her shadow stretching across the bench like a closing curtain. In the hallway outside, Dana Cole walked slowly toward the exit, clutching a stack of letters, the ones her students had written. Her expression wasn't joyous but lighter, as though a storm had passed and left room for sunlight again. A reporter called her name. "Ms. Cole, do you have a comment?" Dana stopped, thinking. "Only this," she said quietly. "If we taught children that words can heal as easily as they can harm, maybe we'd have fewer adults who forget." The reporter lowered his mic, unexpectedly moved. Dana smiled faintly, a real one this time, and continued walking down the corridor. At the far end of the hallway, Melissa Crane waited, escorted by a production assistant. No cameras, no followers, no audience, just her. Her eyes lifted when Dana approached. The two women paused, not close enough to speak, but not far enough to ignore each other. Dana gave a small nod, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. "A simple I see you." Melissa's lip trembled. She nodded back. Then she turned and walked in the opposite direction, her heels echoing down the marble floor until they faded completely. Back inside the courtroom, Judge Judy stood by the bench, now empty of paper and sound. She reached up and removed her robe, folding it neatly over her arm. Without it she looked smaller, human, tired but unshaken. She turned to the clerk who lingered by the door. "Justice doesn't heal people," she said almost to herself. "It clears the fog so they can start to." The clerk paused, uncertain if she was meant to reply. But Judy didn't wait for one. She gathered her notes, turned off the microphone, and walked toward the door. As it closed behind her, the light in the courtroom dimmed to a soft gold, leaving behind only echoes, the kind that don't fade but settle deep, becoming lessons. Outside, the late afternoon sun broke through the clouds, spilling across the courthouse steps like forgiveness in disguise. Weeks later, the world saw a version of Melissa Crane no one recognized. No designer makeup, no ring light glow. Just a woman sitting on the floor of her apartment, her hair tied back, her eyes raw from too little sleep and too much thinking. The red light of her camera blinked on, but for once there was no performance in her gaze, only the quiet terror of someone about to tell the truth. She pressed record. "This isn't content," she began softly. "This is confession." Her voice trembled. "I've spent years calling it honesty when really it was cruelty. I made people laugh by making others smaller. I told myself it was a joke, but it was survival. I thought if I hurt first, no one could hurt me again." She swallowed hard, blinking against tears. I was wrong. On screen, her words came without cuts, without edits. There was no music, just the hum of her refrigerator, the sound of real life creeping in. In the first 24 hours, the video was viewed 3 million times. But this time the comments didn't mock. They paused. They listened. One read, "You can't undo pain, but maybe you can stop passing it on." Another, "For the first time, this doesn't feel like a show." And beneath it all, a message from an anonymous account. Apology accepted. Keep learning. Dana Cole watched the video from her kitchen table, surrounded by papers and the letters from her students. Her hands trembled slightly, not from anger, from release. The tears that fell this time didn't burn. They cooled. She didn't share the video, didn't comment. She simply turned off the screen and whispered, "That's enough." Across town, Judge Judy sat in her chambers, the glow of the monitor lighting the edges of her face. She watched the same confession unfold, her expression unreadable. The sound of Melissa's words echoed faintly off the walls. When the video ended, Judy closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. The faintest flicker of something, maybe approval, maybe quiet relief, softened her features. "Sometimes," she murmured. The verdict arrives long after the gavel. The bailiff knocked lightly and stepped in. "Everything okay, Judge?" She nodded, standing and gathering her robe. "Justice isn't always loud, Frank. Sometimes it whispers where the cameras can't reach." Outside, news stations buzzed about Melissa's raw redemption. But the real transformation wasn't in headlines or hashtags. It was in tone. The comments that once cheered cruelty now debated compassion. The crowd had learned something it hadn't come looking for. Dana visited her classroom again that week. The kids greeted her with cautious smiles. One student, Emily Rivera, handed her a paper apple that read, "Welcome back, Ms. Cole." She smiled and placed it on her desk. The world felt different, not perfect, but softer. That night, as she locked her classroom door, she whispered into the quiet hallway, "Maybe this is how healing begins, quietly." And far away in a dimly lit apartment, Melissa read a letter sitting unopened for weeks, the one Judy had instructed the clerk to forward from Dana. Her fingers hesitated on the envelope. Outside, sirens hummed in the distance, the sound of life continuing, indifferent but steady. She opened it. "Before you hear the verdict, ask yourself, can anyone truly change, or do they just get better at hiding who they are?" Morning sunlight slipped through the half-drawn blinds of Melissa Crane's apartment, spilling across the letter she had yet to unfold. It sat there, quiet but alive, as if it had waited patiently for her courage to catch up. The world outside buzzed, delivery trucks, car horns, life moving on. But inside, time stood still. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the envelope. The paper was plain, the handwriting neat, deliberate. The kind of script that comes from someone who has learned patience the hard way. It read, "Melissa, I forgive you. But I will never forget, because forgetting means pretending it didn't matter." And it did. It still does. I hope someday you teach someone what it cost you to learn this lesson. "Dana." Melissa's throat tightened. The words didn't sting. They settled. They landed softly in the space she'd once filled with noise and justification. For the first time in years, she didn't reach for her phone. She didn't check comments, didn't chase reactions. She just sat there, silent, letting the weight of forgiveness rest exactly where guilt had been. Outside, rain began to fall, slow at first, then steady. The sound filled the room like applause from an unseen audience, but this time it wasn't for her. It was for the quiet, the kind of quiet that heals. A knock came at the door. Her new caseworker, part of the community service program, stood waiting with a clipboard. "Ready for your first session?" he asked. Melissa nodded, slipping the letter into her coat pocket like armor. "I think so." The classroom they led her to wasn't what she expected. It was small, painted in soft blues and greens, the kind of place meant to feel safe. A circle of teenagers sat waiting, all victims or perpetrators of online harassment, each carrying their own invisible scars. When Melissa entered, the room went still. A few recognized her. One whispered, "Is that her?" Another muttered, "The influencer?" She stood before them, awkward but grounded. "Yeah," she said finally. "That was me." The one who thought cruelty was confidence. They listened not because she was famous, but because she was honest. For the next hour, she spoke about what it meant to lose yourself to applause, to trade empathy for relevance, to mistake validation for worth. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. By the time she finished, no one clapped. They didn't need to. The silence between them meant more than approval ever could. Across the city, Judge Judy entered her courtroom once more. Papers stacked neatly, lights adjusted, another day, another case. But for a moment, her hand paused on the gavel. Her reflection stared back, older, wiser, still unyielding. Justice, she thought, isn't a moment. It's a mirror. And sometimes the reflection changes more than the verdict ever could. She struck the gavel once. Next case. The camera panned out slowly, over the courtroom, the echoes, the faces, capturing not a spectacle, but an ending that felt like truth. Narration. Arrogance thinks it wins through noise, but in the end, truth arrives in silence. And when it speaks, even the loudest learn to listen. The gavel's echo lingered one last time. Power built on mockery always collapses under the weight of truth. Justice doesn't destroy. It restores balance, one honest word at a time.